New York, and on the new Hot 97 app. Ebro in the morning on Hot 97.
Ebro in the morning. Beautiful Laura Stiles, Rosenberg, and Michael K. Williams on the program.
Yeah.
Give it up. And who do you have with you today?
Man, I have the lovely Karen Thompson from the Innocence Project.
Thank you.
Karen, tell us about your project. What's going on with you? What's happening?
The Innocence Project uses DNA testing to get wrongfully convicted people out of prison. And thankfully, Mr. Williams is going to come on and be one of our ambassadors.
Amazing. Give it up one
Wow,
time
that's
now.
dope.
I've been
That's
hearing
really
about
dope.
the Innocence Project, I want to say maybe a decade.
25 years?
25 years. And some very powerful attorneys and people have been working for a long time to dig into our criminal justice system and deal with cases and help individuals who are incarcerated basically get out because they've been wrongfully convicted.
That's right. We have freed 362 people so
Yes.
far, just the New
Give it
York
up.
Project, and 2,000 people across the country. But I think all of us want to be out of a job. I think it's terrible that we still have to keep doing this. And unfortunately, the system and many of the flaws that lead to these convictions have not stopped. So that's what
we
we're trying to
see
fix.
now it's become more mainstream to have a criminal justice reform conversation, right? Whether it was because of Colin Kaepernick and police brutality conversations, black men getting killed in the street, what recently happened with Meek Mill. There's a larger national conversation about making sure that the proper district attorneys get voted, because that's a voted-in position, right? And this is in Philadelphia. We've had some a new district attorney. I think in there was another place, a major metro. I want to. Was it Baltimore? Another major metropolitan area where there was a district attorney that was voted in that was on the side of criminal justice reform and reforming cash bail, yes, which is a racket. And
That was definitely Baltimore.
that was Baltimore, right?
For sure.
And a lot of people don't know that. And we've even had the district attorney of Brooklyn. What was his name? Eric Gonzalez. Was that
Yes.
his name? He was just up here talking about cash bail reform and criminal justice reform, because now people's minds are open to the reality that in America there is incentives for people's pockets and bank accounts,
Yes.
to lock up people who can't defend themselves. And most of those people are poor black and brown men who are under attack by our criminal justice system and specifically the police department.
100%. 61% of our exonerees are black men.
Right.
So that should tell you something right there.
I think it's really interesting because I learned about the Innocence Project through Eddie Huang.
Yeah.
He had, when he came for an interview, he said he actually, I think he interned for a while or he worked with the organization. But I started following you guys on social media, and I think one of the things that really stood out for me is the personal stories from people from all walks of life, right? But how interesting, obviously, from state to state, the laws are different. But one thing that really hit home was the stories of men that were wrongly accused. They were in jail for years, 10, 15 years, lost everything, their homes, their family fell apart. And finally, when you guys helped them get out, the state owes them nothing.
Well, look what just happened.
Nothing.
Look what just happened to Valentino Nixon up in Buffalo, New York. 27 years, innocent. He was telling them for years, 27 years, I did not do this crime. The man who did the crime got arrested for something else and decided to confess that he actually did the crime that Valentino Nixon was was doing time for.
Right.
They still kept this man in prison. You want to know how he got exonerated? He decided to free his mind and started reading Golf Digest magazines and said, let me see if I could just draw something. Let me take a chance at drawing something in this.
Yo, I saw about this guy.
He got so good at drawing golf courses, much less having been to a golf course. This man never even played golf, much less been to a golf course. Started drawing these beautiful paintings and decided to, what do I got to lose? Send it into the Golf Digest magazine. They started saying, well, where are these gorgeous pictures coming from, right? That's how this man got exonerated. This just happened last week. 27 years in prison.
Hold on. So I saw that headline. I love golf. So I see this headline that says this, and I'm like, I'm trying to put together what this has to do with each other. The part that's mind-blowing about that is once someone else confessed, he still wasn't freed?
Yes, exactly.
I don't
Yes.
understand.
I don't understand neither, but I would dare to say that race and class played a vital part in that.
They didn't
No, it
feel they had to.
absolutely.
Which is-
Look, if it's not both, it's class for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah, for sure.
Right, because
Yeah,
these individuals do not have anyone to speak on their behalf. That's
So
why
they
the
go,
innocent
we don't care that someone else said it.
Like,
You're not
who's
going to do
gonna
anything
come
anyway.
into jail and knock on the door?
So
Like,
just
who's
stay here.
coming?
Right.
People
Your mom
ignore
is going to
it.
show up and be like, or your wife or somebody. They don't have any power, right? They don't have any legal. They don't know their power. That's why this project is here.
The main reason how I got what made me passionate about this project was I went to visit my brother Jimmy Roseman, and he and his lawyer and I got to talking, and I was saying how I was impressed with what Kim Kardashian had did by advocating for Miss Alice Johnson to come home for her her first time nonviolent crime.
Drug
She was
offense, yeah.
over, because that's an issue that we also have in our community where
Yep.
people are doing Google's amount of time. First time offense, nonviolent, right? People who have
And she's
committed
a
murders.
grandmother.
She's a grandmother. She became a grandmother in prison, right? So that story had hit my radar, and I was talking to Jimmy's lawyers in regards to the situation, and she informed me that in our community we need to change the narrative, right? It can't just be about because a lot of the narrative is. In criminal justice reform, from what my research has shown me, is largely about nonviolent cases. Charging children with all these the crimes as adults for things that this kid nonviolent first time offense. But we need to also take a look at all of these men and women who are rotting in prison for having done nothing, which is the journey I'm taking right now on Central Park 5. I'm quite sure I don't have to rehash that. We all know what happened. But however, I'm living in the story and the script right now. And
Yeah, you're working with Ava DuVernay on that.
Yes, sir.
If the audience watching doesn't know.
Yes, sir. And they've written an amazing story, a narrative. So I'm in it right now. And when I tell you, you have no idea the level of, in my opinion, the sorcery, right, that went on. You have no idea what it is to have someone take your words, your honest words, and use them, and use them as a weapon against you. You and your family. I've never seen that level of trickery and sorcery the way they use on these families. And so, I look at all of that and what Jimmy's lawyers were telling me about, and I was like, wait a minute, how many people are in jail that haven't done anything? And then boom, Valentino Nixon. I'm like, sign me up. How can I be a part of this? And that's what essentially brought me to the project and feel I had a voice in the whole thing.
Well, it's also interesting too because when you don't have representation and you don't have money to get proper representation and you're not educated on your rights,
Yes.
right? They're back to incentives, right? In our society, conviction rates are what keep people, the DA, these people that are working in justice, wherever, those rates keep them employed.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So if you take it a step further, how many times, even in this room, like sometimes we'll see, so-and-so, they found said homeless man who said he did it, and they got him handcuffed and they're walking him out, and you're looking at him and you go, he didn't do that. They just had to put that on somebody so that socially we feel safe. And a lot of times, even and specifically with the Central Park 5, when you look back at that incident, and it was the rape with Central Park, and
Which was horrible. That happened,
it was a
and
bad,
which
terrible
also too.
incident. But they were gonna pin that on somebody.
Yes, that's all they cared about, because the incentive, that's a very, very interesting word. I just learned that word really and what it really meant when I was when I was shooting the documentary Raised in the System. That's a very powerful word, incentive. Even in the police department, there needs to be that word needs to be put. They only get incentives for solving the crime, like for the raises, the promotions only happens when you close the case by any means necessary. And it kind of it doesn't put enough light on wanting to find the truth. you know, coming from, and that was really the case with the
Yeah.
Central Park Five. Everything was like, get these rapists. And meanwhile, they had they had the DNA of the actual rapist and already in their office. They already had access to the man who was really perpetrating the crime, but they were so fixated on just the ends,
A quick.
Yes.
When they say it on the news sometime, it was, you'll see the chief of police get up there and it'll be like, we have a swift, what they some words, a closed
code,
case.
code,
It was
yes,
swift
yes,
and it was
yes.
fast. And they do that to make common folk go, oh, okay, well, they on the job.
Yes.
They're doing, and I feel safe now,
Yeah.
right? And then, don't get me into the characterization of just young black boys as the ones that are always the ones doing the problem. When you look at the Central Park Five, at that time in New York City, it was a lot going on.
Yeah, wildin'.
And characterizing young black boys in a certain way was easy to do. Now you have this social narrative. You have people who don't have money to defend themselves. You have lack of sophistication with the laws and all these other things. And you got a recipe where kids ended up 15, 16 years old.
And what you said earlier, we had people, because I mean, I keep 100. I don't know all my rights. I mean, back then we didn't know our rights. My parents didn't know what rights or what rights. Like I have a right to an attorney. I have a right to. Knowing your rights is a educating ourselves on our rights, our basic rights, and is we take that for granted, and I know I did, and I'm every day I aim to educate myself on what I cannot say. God forbid if I get accosted by police, and what can they not say to me or do to me in the situation, the same situation.
But you might know all your rights, and you
shit
get in
still
that
goes,
situation.
excuse my language.
You get in that situation, and you can't function properly because you're so
afraid.
scared. And when you were a child, and that's something I think gets denied black boys, they get treated like they're adults and that they're grown when they're children.
Yep.
So when you put these children who are already scared in a room with some police officers, you separate them, you keep them there, they're teenagers and you're not feeding them.
40 hours. by the
40
way.
hours.
40 hours.
They're
Not
there,
sleeping.
Not sleeping. How would you feel? But when you're a 15-year-old and then someone's coming at you saying, did you do this? Did you kill this person? Did you kill this person? Tell me the truth and you can go home. You're going to plead to anything to go home. And so there's other stuff in there, not even about not knowing your rights, but just not even being treated like the child that you are. And I think any of us under those circumstances would fall.
Would it fall apart?
Now, if people want to support the Innocence Project, how can regular people support?
There's so many ways. You can actually become your own little ambassador, and you can support us on Twitter. Our handle is @Innocence. And you can also follow us on Facebook. We're on Instagram. So you can tweet out anything that we, put out there. You can look at the stories of our exonerees. You can volunteer. And of course, you can send us money. But you can follow all of our ambassadors because they're actually the ones with the biggest microphones. And we think them being able to tell the stories, that's what
Busta
gets
Rhymes, I
everything out.
believe. I'm in some great company, man. My brother from Brooklyn, Busta Rhymes, Steve Colbert, and my brother, man, who's gone through the fire, and now he's coming on the other side. He's come out on the other side and does a lot of advocating for the situation. Is Derek Hamilton, man. He was also wrongfully accused and did a chunk of his life in prison, and he came home now, and he also advocates to him. I think on his. He's how many people has he helped to get exonerated wrongfully?
I think it's close to like 20.
Like 20 cases on. So shout out to my brother Derek Hamilton, man. He's doing the work for real.
Do you feel like it's become more of a mainstream conversation to talk about our problems as a society and how we deal with crime and criminalize individuals?
Well, you see what's going on right now, and I think something that's been really interesting for me about this Kavanaugh situation is people saying, oh, he was a child.
I was just thinking the exact same thing.
Yes.
There's a tendency to make a white 25-year-old, or let's be more realistic, a white 20-year-old can be made to be a child. Meanwhile, it seems like a black 11-year-old is turned into a grown man.
Shot to death.
Yeah.
right? Because of their
Oh,
criminality.
it looked like a man was holding a gun and it was a child
Right.
holding a squirt gun.
Right.
So it's just very interesting the way society chooses to change the way they see people of color
You
versus
guys know
people
I
of white.
think it's done on purpose, and it was been done on purpose for a long time, because once you can make a portion of society the scapegoats for society's problems, you now don't have to deal with your problems. You can pin them on someone and act like the rest of everything is great. It's these people who are the problems.
Right.
But I think
Right.
that's what's changing. I think people are now going, when they get called for jury duty, and everybody needs to go to jury duty if they get called. Don't try to get out of it, because we need normal people who are thoughtful and understand these things to be on juries.
That's real talk.
That is super real talk.
Real talk right there.
I'm serious. When people
Yeah,
are like,
really
I
like
can't
none of
do
y'all, and I don't
anything,
trust
go
y'all.
to be
Yeah.
on a jury.
Yeah.
I know
Exactly.
Because you never know what case we might be trying. That's real talk.
No,
right
that's
there.
super important.
It's true.
You know what I mean? I've been so obsessed with the voting, like making sure I tell everyone, that's within 5 feet of me, like to please go vote in November.
But what about
right?
the decisions you get to make on a
But
jury?
on a daily basis on a jury? I didn't even think about
Because
that.
believe me, the
That's
racist
dope.
assholes with nothing to do,
They
got
go.
time.
They go.
They got
They
time.
make time
They'll
to
sit
go.
there with straw in their mouth,
Yes.
waiting. Sorry, that was messed up. I shouldn't have said that. they'll make time to sit on that jury. And if all of I know, sorry, that was bad. But if all of us who live in urban communities are like, nah, I'm just too busy. I'm a law. I'm gonna do this. Gotta do that. We don't
And you
do
know
it.
who's too busy? Hardworking poor folks,
It's true.
specifically
For real,
black
though.
and brown,
Yes.
who
For
are
real,
though.
carrying mad jobs and don't have the higher paying
Families
jobs
to
and the
feed.
vacation times
Yeah.
or whatever.
Time,
whatever.
yeah,
Yep.
the luxury of taking off to go to work.
Yes.
But I want to oppose. That's the correct word. A question to my
Propose.
Excuse me. Thank you. Propose a question to my community, with myself included. Right. I've reached a point in my life, in my career, where I'm tired of complaining, and I am tired of just protesting, and I'm tired of getting mad. And I'm real tired of feeling helpless, right? I'm sick of that. I asked my community, what can we do together, right? Without having to wait on or to ask another said community for help. What can we do in the meanwhile until they get on board, until this whole thing turns around? What can we do? What power do we have within ourselves to save our kids, right? I'm so tired of turning on the TV and seeing brown children dying, man. They kill us, we kill us. At the rate we going, what's going to be left of us? So I asked what can I do? If I got to take off, slow down on the work to mentor another one, I will do that. I don't have the answers, and but I got a big ache in my heart. So I just wanted to put that out there.
I think a lot of times, and we talk about on the show, it starts with parenting and being there for the kids, to have the conversations in those critical times.
I say let's get back to the village.
Yeah.
The village.
It really starts, that's where it starts.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And it starts about having honest dialogue about the things that culturally we need to fix with ourselves.
Yes, sir.
Right? We don't, I don't
That
really.
didn't help Trayvon Martin. You know what I mean? I think you're right. I think we all need to have mentors, and we all need to be mentoring.
Oh, I'm not just stopping there.
Okay.
I'm also like,
He just was saying, what can we do for ourselves?
How can we start to learn how to first get our community, police our community?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not just talking about mentor. I'm talking about what can we do as a community to stop our kids from getting killed on these streets.
Yeah.
Like, I'm talking the whole gamut. I ain't just
And
talking
then
about
there's the other layer
mentorship.
that we have to, what you pointed out earlier, in my opinion, is we have to change a cultural narrative that is against us, right?
Sure.
So that we're not getting killed by individuals, or our deaths are going like we don't matter.
Right.
And our lives don't matter, which is where that thing started, where you had a self-appointed community.
There you go.
What was
Security guard, whatever.
Security
Yes, sir.
guard who killed a little boy, and everybody was acting like in that community like that was normal. And he's still out here signing Skittle packages.
bags.
And socially,
Skittle bags.
Socially, there's a group of people who are okay standing next to that.
See, and that's
Of
what
course.
that's what I think there's an important part though too, because Michael, you said the thing about what can the black community do, but at the same time, while you shouldn't have to ask people for help when it comes to the view of policing and all those things, it is imperative that white people know, care, and help. Because I refuse to accept that in 2018, there isn't a major part of the white population whose heart also hurts when they see black kids die.
I agree.
And thinks this is wrong. But do they say anything? And do you tell people like, that's not right. I'm not okay with that. That's not okay. So that while you're right.
Be vocal about it.
Exactly. While every community has to look out for their own situation, it is imperative that as brothers and sisters of America who care about these simple issues, we all should have our eyes open. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's really important, especially when it comes to the policing. And I think over the last couple of years, we've made some strides. The tide is turning slowly.
Yeah.
Just too fucking slowly sometimes.
What's Chief Madriata? I gotta shout him out, man. He's a brother, and he's in charge of North Brooklyn. He resides over 5,000 cops. I believe him. I believe he wants change. You know, it's that, you know, there's terminology. You have community policing versus traditional methods.
Yep, we've had that conversation.
I'm gonna leave it there. Right?
Yeah, we've been down to One Police Plaza and we talked to Jimmy O'Neill and we've talked to a lot of those guys and they've been honest about the mistakes that the NYPD has made in the past.
Yes, sir.
If you're paying attention to a lot of the police officers from the old guard or old era have been getting locked up, or crimes have been being pinned on them for their own activities. And
again, it's too slow, but there are people there who do get it.
Get it.
The thing is, again, though, are they then gonna tell when they're sitting there and the good white cop is sitting there with 4 other white cops and they're all saying crazy shit about going to do? Are you gonna be brave enough to be like, guys, I can't fuck with that?
But it's an ecosystem, right? It's not just one thing.
Right.
So we have to work in all the ways and approach it.
From every right.
So New York State just passed a prosecutorial misconduct commission. So now we know that prosecutors who aren't turning over exculpatory evidence, there are going to be repercussions for that.
So they have to do it.
They have to stop listening to cops who are lying to them, and if the cops are lying to them, they need to turn that over.
They're now obligated to
and
turn
they're
it.
obligated in New York State.
Okay.
Right, but there's not been how many? We have 2,000 wrongful convictions, and in many of those there was prosecutorial misconduct, and nobody did anything, and there was not a single repercussion for that attorney. They didn't lose their license.
It's insane.
They went on to do it to other
insane.
people. Like we have a case in Kentucky where this cop was lying. He was lying to the prosecutor. He just got arrested for that.
I have a question. What happened to the lady cop?
Yeah.
Who killed that
in
man
Texas?
In Texas.
I think
Amber
she got
Geiger, she got fired.
She's
She's got a manslaughter charge, and they're talking about raising it up. So people are waiting. But she definitely got fired, which I think makes it more of a easier path to convict her. I think.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Because that's the thing. And then they'll indict her or whatever on murder 1 or murder 2, and then they'll say, well, we couldn't prove it.
So is that why they went with manslaughter? Because they thought they could get that?
Yeah, because manslaughter is probably the lowest bar, so it's easier to get, right? But you go higher, and then people start making all their rationale for why she,
right.
That's called reasonable doubt.
It's complicated.
Well, yeah, once you start trying to make it a murder charge, now you're trying to say that she planned it, when really they can argue, well, she's just a crazy person, she lost it, and she did this bad thing.
Right.
So that's a whole nother circumstance. But guys, this is awesome. We appreciate you taking the time.
The Innocence Project, at Innocence, Michael K. Williams, new ambassador. It was a pleasure meeting you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And anytime
Cheers, guys.
you
For
guys
having
need to
us,
get the
bro.
word
Thank
out,
you.
y'all come through.
Doors
all
open.
right? Give it up one time, man.
Thank you so
Innocence
much.
Project.